Do you think that is what's keeping kind of the user experiences, the general technology back in the alternative investment world? Remember, hard to value assets is what I'm talking about, listener. Do you think it's because the industry itself hasn't gone through this kind of data standardization? Eric always does the clap.
Always. It is a nice intro.
I try to do the clap, but I don't feel like my clap is nearly as good as Eric's clap.
No.
Eric, listeners listening now. Oh, hi everybody. You just jump right in. Eric wears lots of hats around here, and so one of his hats is the sound engineer and the editor of this podcast. So I think he gets the right to do the clap because he can hear his own clap better.
Got to clap us in, you know?
Well, listener, welcome to Alts at Altitude. It's beautiful out today.
So nice.
For those that are watching on YouTube, you see that I don't have my cowboy boots on. I have my Sporty Spice sneaks on.
I'm so disappointed.
And everyone around here has been giving me shade about like the fact that I have no-show socks on too. Like everyone's just giving me a lot of shit about. Oh, this is PG-13, by the way, Trevor.
Okay.
But I'm hip. I'm trying to be hip in my old age. Thanks, Eric.
I didn't say it, but it kind of looks like you're not even wearing socks from my perspective. So.
Yeah, that's the whole idea. I had a good friend of mine at one point say, you wouldn't wear a scarf around your neck in the summertime, so why do you put socks around your ankles?
Yeah.
He was a complicated man. Guys, today I'm super stoked, though. We're going to jump right in. So not just talking about my no-show socks, which I highly recommend. Today is one of my favorite topics we're going to talk about. And it's really, and it's going to be, listener, this is one of those worlds, this is one of those podcasts where we're going to switch between industry talk and new direction talk. So forgive us already that we're going to jump back and forth because today the topic really is technology in the alternative investment industry. Now, obviously, we have a perspective as a company, New Direction, shout-out sponsor. But today we're really going to frame it up because we've gone through a journey. We got a new person to introduce you to, by the way, too. I'll do it in a second. Okay. Not just me and Eric all the time. We started a journey about 3 years ago at New Direction to tackle some of these technology problems in this industry. And we learned a lot. And today we're going to kind of talk about that. You know, why is it so important? What in the alternative investment world, where are the friction points? And remember, alternatives in this room is not just crypto. It's buying real assets in your IRAs. It's how do I buy a house? How do I invest in a local brewery? Not just how do I buy crypto? So I think a lot of people, I just want to make that very clear. We're talking more about the raw assets, the hard to value assets, not crypto has taken over the alternative world, which is a whole podcast we could do ourselves, but maybe we should. And so we've learned a lot. We have done a lot. And today we're going to kind of start really high level and kind of bring it down to, ground level of what's happening now. So before we get started, Eric, I'm going to introduce our guest today, a very good friend of ours, co-colleague, just a good Colorado man, tattooed. Didn't you recently get married too, last year?
I did.
Yeah.
2 years ago.
So Trevor McCleary is here, and he wears two different hats. He's actually with a company called Bear Peak, who is a huge partner of ours. If there are two companies that were just like lockstep together, it's Bear Peak Technology and New Direction Trust Company. They are our technology partner. They provide architecture for us. They provide engineering development. They provide Trevor. Trevor also acts as the product manager at New Direction for all of our technology, for our customer experience technology.
You just damn good job too.
Damn good job. Just capital D, damn good job.
PG-13.
PG-13. And Trevor is a very smart guy, and I enjoyed every moment working with him for the past few years. And he's been with us lockstep in tackling the technology problem at New Direction. So everyone, welcome Trevor. Say hi, Trevor.
Hey, everybody. Thanks, guys, for having me. I'm excited to talk about it.
He looks excited.
He does.
Yeah, he's got the school's colors on too, with the Bear Peak shirt on.
Oh, yeah, got to represent, you know.
John, who also is very close to us, he runs Bear Peak, and I know he probably is like, Trevor, wear the Bear Peak shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah,
I got to represent though.
I love when engineers try to be marketing people.
Yep.
It's my favorite thing in life. All right, so let's frame this up, guys. Let's start talking about this. So, I'm going to make it a little personal, then we're going to go from there. So I got here and I became CEO 3-4 years ago, and I was shocked, downright shocked, how far behind the industry was in just capital T technology, data standards, all the way up to digital user experiences that people interact with. So from data all the way to the interaction. I was shocked just how much paper was involved, literally paper, how much wet signatures were involved, how much the United States Postal Service was used. And this was only 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It literally is crazy. And, one of the things that I set as a goal for New Direction, remember, listener, we're jumping back and forth, is that you're going to hear us say this a lot today. We needed to take out the friction in the process. And we kind of came up with a mantra saying that we're a technology-enabled trust company. We're not a technology company. That's what Bear Peak does, actually. We're a technology-enabled company. And that's when we partner with Bear Peak to tackle this problem. How do we make it better? So let's frame it up, though. So, Eric, from an investor's perspective, we've done a lot of research, obviously. What were and still are to some extent made the pain points that the investors are running into from a technology lens?
Well, I think you said it perfectly. I mean, it's, typically paperwork heavy process. A lot of these investments aren't just click and go like they are on most of the online brokerage platforms with Wall Street investments. There's a lot of different signatures. There's a lot of paperwork. So that inherently creates a lot of complexity in the process.
Yeah.
And when the technology is lacking behind, those steps sort of just compound on one another. And so, investors are wanting to make sure they have all their documentation and they want to know where the investment is along the way, those types of things. And these are all issues, again, that get compounded with the more paperwork you have and the worse the technology ends up being. So again, it just makes it confusing. It makes it hard to follow. It makes it not necessarily that appealing for people to want to do this. And that's what we want to change. We want it to be easy for people. We want them to want to be able to do this.
Yeah. I mean, I jokingly, I'm infamous for oversimplifying things, and Trevor knows this, working so closely with me. At the end of the day, I think, just to your point, to wrap it up a little bit, is that investors just want to know, where am I and what's next?
Exactly.
That's it. And 3-4 years ago, it was hard in this industry, not just at New Direction, to say, where am I and what's next?
Yeah.
Now, we have spent a good amount of money and time and effort and brain power to solve that, which is a good transition to Trevor then. Is Trevor, just general, 100,000 feet, when we say technology and financial services, frame it up for me, what makes good technology in financial services?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great question.
Thank you. It was written down right here. I just read it.
Good. Well, there you go. Yeah, I think from a high level, just to start with, really quality data, quality processes, and consistency, right? Like, across the board with all of this, as you mentioned as well, figuring out where we are and what you have to do to be able to execute these investments is crucial to the investment process. And if you lean into the investment alone, doing it outside of a retirement account is already a complicated process.
Yep.
But then adding us as a player involved is challenging. And I think there's a requirement from us at NDTCO. I'm speaking at the...
he wears lots of hats too, so listeners, strap in.
I think that's a... it's a requirement from us to actually be able to really understand our data
Mm-hmm.
and be able to identify where these transactions are, and then also be able to add transparency to our users. But without quality data, you can't do that. And the banking industry as a whole, the financial services industry as a whole, I believe right now is kind of changing a little bit. And like currently, the industry is rising around us, and there's a requirement from us to be able to rise with it. But it starts really with our data and our processes before we can actually even add that in.
And we're gonna use our learnings through New Direction to project onto the industry. So at New Direction, what would you say? And it's okay. This is a safe place. You can make fun of New Direction if we have to. When you started this project and you started looking at the alternative investment data that we had at the time, which is better now. You'll get to that punchline later, listener. But what were you finding? Like, and I'm going to guess too that the rest of the industry is the same way. Like, I'm going to assume we found that our data wasn't pristine. It wasn't perfect. Because these assets are so unique. Like, give me some insight on the challenge that you found while you were digging into all that.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. It is very it's unique, and unique in this circumstance isn't necessarily a good thing.
Yeah.
You want to have standardization so that all of these investments can be tied to, so to speak, a well-oiled machine, right?
Yeah.
So when I first got here and we were going through all of the processes, we were finding one-offs in how things are handled, right? And ultimately all of the data gets entered in, but the process in which it goes to get there can be nuanced, making it very difficult to allow transparency for our users, right? And, across the board, when you look at other companies, and the other companies I have talked to too, you find that is a rather consistent element, right? These banking industries have built platforms that are sometimes decade or older, and they built it at that age, but they haven't improved the processes quite as much since.
Yep.
And, in my experience coming to NDTCO, it seems like, ironically, we had done a lot of changes, but we really hadn't taken that big, broad step forwards.
Agreed.
And that's a requirement, for us to really evolve into this technological age and be able to attach an experience to that. So I think that was a core element that I found when we went through and basically audited how the processes work, how the data looks, all that jazz.
I'll say it this way too. From a business lens, not just a technology lens, when I came in as the CEO, I don't know if you know that, listener, I'm the CEO. It's a joke. And this is true for the industry now that I've studied it for years. There is no standards. This is going to piss off some of our colleagues, but we don't have federal regulation, if you will, in the alternative investment and retirement accounts. It's state regulated, so different states ask for different things. Where I came from, the brokerage firm, the SEC set the stage. They made a rule book. So one of the things I think has been challenging for us, Trevor, too, just kind of piling on, is that we had to create our own rule book in a way to be able to create technology, because we needed standards, because there was no industry group, there was no federal agency saying, here are the standards. And I think when you look at the data, using your point, which I 100% agree with, our data was like a sedimentary rock of decisions made over 25 years based upon what was happening at that moment, to your point.
Yep.
And now we at New Direction and as an industry are trying to say, okay, what are the standards now? Because investors are expecting that standardization that you speak of.
Exactly.
It's, I'm going to go on a little tangent here. We talked about it before the podcast. So one of the challenges in financial services, especially from a technology standpoint, is that almost every user in America comes with experiences interacting with a financial services platform now in 2026. Everyone either logs into Chase, U.S. Bank, Schwab, fill in blank. Everyone comes with expectations.
Yep.
And as an industry, we have been below those expectations. But someone who, and as we've gotten more popular with alternative assets, now we have a dentist in Nebraska who expects us to be as good as Chase But Chase has $100 million. I wish we had $100 million. That'd be awesome.
To put specifically
To technology.
to the
Right.
technology and
Right.
the user experience.
And so now the user's mental model is, oh, you suck because you're not as good as Chase.
Right.
And Trevor and I have had many hours of conversation on how can we simplify these processes, to your point. Data,
Yeah.
process, user experience is kind of what we looked at.
Yeah.
And how we approached that was difficult because there's a lot of roadblocks. So let's talk a little bit about when technology actually is not good and the decisions we had to go through. And, Eric, talk a little bit about, again, kind of representing the investor. Like what creates friction?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with a number of different investors and, investment providers. And, a couple of the main things are typically hard to use portals that are outdated. There's not a lot of good flow of information, unclear next steps. Another thing that you had mentioned before is investors want to know where they're at and where they're going.
Yep.
And many of these platforms have very unclear status updates. So I think they're confused as to where things are at along the way. And again, we've sort of talked about how these alternative assets are typically a lot more paperwork heavy. There's a lot more information. There's a lot more, due diligence that the investor needs to do in the whole process. So that just creates a lot more documentation, a lot more information that we need to collect and organize. And so again, highlighting when you have bad technology, it makes it really difficult to collect all that information, and then in turn, for us to organize that data so that we can also, as a company, New Direction, better serve our clients and investors in that way too.
It's even crazier. And Trevor and I ran into this a lot. In this world, I'm going to use quotes, listener, of self-directed. That's a marketing term. There's no such thing as a self-directed IRA. The IRA we provided, we've made this very clear in other podcasts, is the same IRA that Schwab provides. We allow alternatives in it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So this concept of self-directed is a marketing term. But using that term, that means that there's self-reporting by the end user. Right. And we ran into this. We had so many cool ideas about how we could track all the performance of these alternatives. You should see, Trevor's also a designer, so let's make that very clear what his kind of trade is. And so he would design these unbelievable user experiences. And then he would go back to the engineering team, like, well, can you give me the data for it? And they're like, we don't have it.
Right.
Because a lot of these assets are self-reported. We've talked about fair market value so many times in these parts. Well, if the client only gives us a fair market value once a year, now we have one data point.
Right.
Value of home on May 11th.
Right.
Well, you can't do a lot with that one data point because you can't trend it. You can't do this. You can't do that. And I wish sometimes we could, I don't know if we could do this. I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but I wish we could show Trevor's original design based upon what actually was able to do, because the original design's the right design. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But we don't have the data, and we don't have the data standards to do it, and we also didn't have the processes. So talk to me more, Trevor, about some of those pain points that you ran into. This is a little bit of a post-mortem. This is kind of fun. I've kind of taken this over.
This is great.
But what did you run into as you were designing the New Direction platform?
Yeah, okay. So I want to take a step back too, because you called out a bunch of elements that go right into this.
Yeah, typically.
Right. Let's talk about the Chase effect that you were just talking about. Right. So Chase, as a high level, offers very specific products. Right. Whereas we offer the more nuanced, different way. We literally live in the alternatives,
yes.
Right? Like the non-standard. So that in and of itself makes it a very challenging thing to hit, because they deal with X set of variables and we deal with A through Z set of variables.
Yeah, all snowflakes, as I would call it.
Yeah, 100%. Everyone is different. Yep. Absolutely. So that, just to set the standard, is a really crucial thing to call out, that when users come and expect a Chase experience out of us, and then go to invest with something like 100 cows out in the middle of the country, or a whole condominium or set of condominiums to add to their portfolio, it becomes very, very nuanced very fast. So just from a high level, it's not quite apples to apples, but people look at it as apples to apples.
Yep.
So I guess where I'm going with this to explain it. So when I got to NDTCO, my hope was to be able to use those benchmarks. But each one of these are different, and each one of them is private. So the trending that you see with, like, say, Chase, for example, you can't really do exactly with, 60 cows out in the middle of nowhere.
You mean
right?
trending like data display trending?
Exactly, exactly, 100%. So just because of that nuance, there's already some challenges in how do you provide a similar experience with something that is absolutely not remotely
very
close.
Difficult.
Yeah. So when I first started and I built this design, I designed everything with the concept in mind that we'd be able to pull data and be able to flag data throughout the lifespan of a lot of these. And what we found was, one, to your point, fair market valuations are really like the absolute requirement to be able to track any of that. And then, two, on top of that, there is some public data available, but there's not a lot, and it doesn't look good. It does not present well.
And in itself is inconsistent to some extent.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I just want to call that out because, the expectation that people come into with an industry like this is much different in reality when you really put pencil to paper. So
yep.
Yeah, I think that was incredibly surprising to me, but it's just an industry standard when you deal with alternatives. It's gonna,
I mean, we're gonna go to some more challenges, but I can't help myself. It's getting better. Like
right.
we're a youthful, young. I don't mean like age, but we're relatively new to the general investor. You're not your high end New York City private equity guy, but your dentist in Nebraska kind of guy.
Right.
And so it's getting better as our listeners and as our clients understand that them working with us to get the data is actually going to make their experience better.
Yeah.
And to go along with the snowflake thing, and you've heard me say this probably a million times, you just want to throw something at me. Yes, every asset's a snowflake, but what Trevor and I had to figure out, or really Trevor and Bear Peak had to figure out, is what every snowflake, though, is cold, wet, and white. Mm-hmm. So we had to find what is the cold, wet, and white of every alternative asset to start creating this data standard, even though they're all snowflakes. Right. We had to figure out what was the thing that tied all these snowflakes together, and that was a lot harder than I anticipated.
Yeah, the distillation process
is a big word.
Super. I mean, to your point exactly there. So you have to distill all of these assets and these investments down to their bare bones to be able to actually put any sort of quality UI to it or experience to it, right? And just looking at the investment process as well, like you said, snowflakes,
yep.
Right? There's all some very basic distilled elements that are required to be able to invest in these, including can I actually invest in this? So that's a separate question. So that's the actual IRS laws of what we can allow folks to invest in, right? And be able to
you can't invest in collectibles.
Bingo.
Kind of thing. Yep.
Yeah. But then on top of that, then there's a requirement of what do we actually need to know to be able to execute this investment? And when everything is paperwork based and is all encompassing over 25 years of being in business,
yep.
it becomes incredibly difficult to suss out what is required versus what was nice to have at the time, right?
Yeah, that's a great point.
It's funny. It's not there. I think you brought this up before too. There's not a specific rule book for that.
No.
So there's a lot of research that's required and digging required to really boil it down to what is the bare minimum.
And that's where we had to start from it. I mean, that's what we had to get to was, Eric's bringing up earlier about the friction points and all that. Before we could start even showing where clients are and what's next, we had to figure out what is the basic information they needed.
Yeah.
Which, listener, I know that sounds so simple, and the simplest questions are usually the hardest questions. Mm-hmm. What does an investor, and this is rhetorical to some extent, what does an alternative investor need to know right now?
Right.
And that is hard. given that it's been such a snowflake environment. You're just killing that analogy, of course. Keep going then. So we went from, okay, now, well, let me project this even more to the industry. Let me ask you a question. It's a lot of work to do what you just talked about.
Yeah.
Going through the research. And we did years of, we're still not done. Like, it's not done.
Yep.
The next major project is really more data standardization and quote cleanup. Do you, and this is a little off script, I'm just curious. Do you think that is what's keeping kind of the user experiences, the general technology back in the alternative investment world? Remember, hard to value assets is what I'm talking about, listener. Do you think it's because the industry itself hasn't gone through this kind of data standardization?
I think it's a little bit. So that's kind of a complicated question. I think it's the data. I think it's also understanding the regulations too.
Yeah.
Because there's the data part of how do we store the right data? What data are we storing? Is it the right data? And how are we tracking and being able to understand that data to be able to present it? But then there's also, I guess there's 3 points. There's regulations and then the risks as well of what data do we show, because we also don't want to manipulate stuff to make it misleading.
Yeah, we don't make it appear like we have an opinion in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or
absolutely.
we're giving advice in any way.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right. But then, there's also any sort of legislation about it or any sort of government bodies that we run into when we bump heads with, because we, as a business, have to make very particular decisions to not fall into an area that puts us at risk. So
totally.
I guess it kind of overlaps a little bit with risk.
And were you thinking that often when you're doing the design? Like, were you thinking, okay, it sounds like what you're saying is that, this is probably 2 years ago. I mean, listener, we've been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
Were you putting all that into the pot when you'd look at a design or an idea, be like, okay, what's the regulation? What's the risk? What data do I have? What's the user expectation? That seems like a lot all at once.
Right. Yeah, no, 1,000%. And that's one of those things that's really tricky is, you can have people that have answers, but nobody really has all of those answers.
Yeah, especially in this industry.
In the product world, it is awesome to have somebody who can set the stage of these are basically what you're going to bump into and design within these and build within this framework.
Yeah.
But in this industry, you have to find that information yourself.
Yeah.
And do the research and then work with a legal team and work with tax professionals to really understand what are my limitations, and then provide an experience that threads that needle and also offers a quality experience.
Yeah, it's like our friends down the street at Robinhood, for example. In a way, they could just go hire a bunch of Schwab people and do better than Schwab. Does that make sense?
Right.
We couldn't go and hire a bunch of people that once made a really cool alternative asset platform. We had to figure it out.
Bingo.
Yeah.
And that, kind of coming full circle to what I was talking about before, that's where the chase effect is really, damning for us.
Yes, I know.
And challenging for us because people expect that, but there's nobody who's written the book on it before.
Yeah, and listener, you know me well enough now, if you watch these, that I'm going to jump around, but we're feeling that now with some of the feedback of our soft launch of the platform, right?
Yeah.
Because we'll talk about the new platform here in a second, but some of the feedback we're getting is pretty much the chase effect. Where's this? Why isn't it doing this? We're like, yeah, we know. We don't have that data.
Right.
Sorry.
Right.
It's going to take time.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's jump then. Eric, let's jump. We framed up the problem. The industry has a data problem. New Direction had a data problem. The industry had a somewhat defined workflow problem. And then I'll put a little color on that for a second. One private equity investment's not the same as the other private equity. So we had to figure out the standards between everything. And that was very difficult. It was not easy. Because in the past, it was just, how did Joe downstairs do it is different than how Tim did it. But it was okay because it all came to the same conclusion. Right. So, as we went through this, what did we hear from investors? What did investors want in an alternative asset platform for their portfolio?
simplicity.
Yep.
I think that's the number one. Simplicity, transparency. They want to know the status, like we talked about.
Yep.
They want to be able to log into the platform and see everything right there. They don't want to do any guesswork.
Yep.
And so I think, that's, as we'll talk later on, that's really one of the things that Trevor and Bear Peak have really tried to, emphasize, is that simplicity, that visibility, the transparency of it all, which the industry has traditionally lacked.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and again, simplicity is an easy word, very hard to do.
That's probably the most complicated. Making something sweet and simple, that's as hard as it gets.
Trevor, give us an example. Again, off script. This is what happens. I warned you. I go off script.
Yeah.
Give us an example when you're going through designing the new platform. Give us an example of a function that you thought was going to go this way, but ended up going this way.
Ooh, I like this.
Like that was very difficult in a way to actually make what our goal was simplicity. It was to have a frictionless platform.
Right.
Give me some of those friction designs. I mean, this is off script, listener, so give them a second to think. But because I got some, I know because I was part of this design process too.
Yeah.
I can remember vividly when we were talking about the workflows of something as simple as bill pay.
Yep.
And the regulators are saying, well, we need a receipt. Well, not every bill pay has a receipt. And we had all of these kind of what if things, and everyone think, oh, it can't be that hard. You're just paying a bill.
Yep.
Holy moly. And it's not like the banking bill payment where you go on your bank and set up a bill payment, because these bill payments can be what sound as simple as paying a plumber with a check, all the way to being part of a huge credit card network to pay it.
Right.
And I want to jump in and add one more word, because you just made me think of it, that again can go lob over to you, but intuitive.
Yes.
So talking about bill pay, is it intuitive to find out where the heck bill pay is on the platform?
Yes.
That sort of thing.
Yeah.
So do you have anything I just remember I was sitting in a room talking about bill pay, and we're like, holy, this is way more complicated than I anticipated.
Yeah, man, bill pay seems easy in comparison to just funding.
Oh,
I mean, just
gosh.
funding an account.
Yes.
And I'll say that simply because of we deal primarily with traditional and Roth IRAs, right? But then you get all of these other subcategories, right? And inherently, they're actually, now that I think about it too, funding and distributions.
Oh yeah, distributions.
But all of those have account A to account B, and then the means in which that money and or assets is moving over, right? So take, for example, we have what's called in the industry the ACAT system, right? It's a system to facilitate transfers. But there are specific assets that are allowed to be moved and things that are allowed to be moved between the systems. That is tricky. Then the account types, then also the age ranges for contribution limits, and it becomes so nuanced so fast. And it's kind of funny when I first started here, transfer ins, rollovers, indirect rollovers, contributions, the whole 9 yards, was one of the first things that I tackled. And it was also one of the first things that I designed a solution for and had to rebuild from the ground up.
It was wrong, basically.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I basically had to go back, school myself more on the laws and on the matrix. And what I found, we built this matrix of what account can go where.
I remember this,
and connect together, right?
That's a great graphic, by the way.
Yeah. And I mean, that graphic, the graphic Kevin's referring to, is basically a matrix for our technology team, but also for our processing team to be able to refer to, because we need a standard, coming back to the word standard, to be able to actually make this technology work. Otherwise, engineers deal in the absolutes. There's no gray area. And if there is gray area, you end up finding a solution for it. It's A or B, you know? Anyways, kind of coming full circle back around on that, that was one of the biggest and one of the hardest processes to tackle, specifically because of that nuance and because of all of the details. I mean, it is staggering. And it's all with this idea too of creating a better experience. I mean, if you go in and you start a transaction that either NDTCO doesn't support or the IRS does not allow, Then you get a user who wants to do something, who has submitted something. It takes us, some time to review it, double check it, and then get back to that user and say, hey, you can't do that. And if they're expecting to close on a house and they're opening an account with us to be able to close on a house and get money to make this transaction happen, that is a bad experience, especially if they lose it, right? So there's an obligation on us to create an experience that adheres within IRS rules, but doesn't allow us or doesn't put us in the fiduciary category.
Yeah, the F word.
And it's tricky. It's really tricky.
You know what though? I mean, I'll say this. I mean, this is definitely, listener, this is like three guys have been working on this for a while. Yeah. So you're jumping into the postmortem side of this, and that's the point of the podcast. Is Trevor, our podcast is to get the listeners in the room with us.
Sure.
And this is how we talk. This is like, especially you and I. This is what we talk about all the time.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I find it interesting. So we're going to jump now to where we are today. So listener, we have soft launched. So I encourage you to, if you're a New Direction client, to go to ndtco.com and check it out. We have soft launched, which means we haven't necessarily promoted it yet.
Right.
A new platform. It's a parallel kind of experience, so you can choose to go to the new platform or you can stay on the legacy one for a time period. We don't have that time period defined yet, but for a while. So we're in the feedback mechanism right now. This is version 1 of the platform, if you will. And, it's one of those things that we are soft launching because we're learning together with our users. Because to all the things we've talked about for the past 20 minutes, we don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
And this is somewhat of a dance with our users to be like, okay, does this work?
Right.
Because we're creating something new. We're not just recreating Scottrade's trading platform. We're creating something new, so it's a dance. And I would say for this team, we're willing to do that dance, and a lot of people aren't.
Yeah.
And so it is, if you like that kind of dancing, I encourage you to open an account at New Direction Trust Company. Shout out to our sponsor. Let's talk a little bit about the new platform in its current state. I'm going to put a little bit of a teaser out there. There's going to be an expanded version coming out in the middle of the summer. So right now we have the soft launch of the website. In the summer, there's going to be an expanded version of it. I'm not going to give out too many details. A little tease for the summertime. So let's stick. Everybody in this room knows what it is, but I'm not going to say it out loud because I'm going to piss off our marketing team, which Eric's a part of. So
yeah, it's fine.
Eric's like, I'll just overrule everybody.
You can cut that part out, right?
Everyone's like, shoot, do we really let Kevin talk about this? And so, in today's environment, we launched this new platform. So let's talk about the platform, guys. Let's talk about what we launched. And I'm going to shoot to you, Trevor. So what are like the three core kind of, I call them headlights. Like what are the, when we sit back and look what we launched to our users, what are the things we're like, that provides fill in that blank?
Yeah. So I believe, I got to scratch my head on this because I've been up to my eyes in surveys right now. So total clarity was one of them, right? So
goes back to Eric's point. People wanted clarity.
100%.
Yep.
Yeah. So the way we organized just the portfolio in general, we wanted to pool all of the transactions related to specific assets to just the specific asset, right? So like you have a portfolio, you have a breakdown of all the assets, you see all the money that you have in the account right there, and then you tap an asset and you can sell the asset, you can valuate the asset, you can add additional funding in, capital call, et cetera, all that jazz.
So it's clear the actions at the point of asset.
Bingo.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. If you have an asset and you want to do something with it, you tap that asset and it's right there for you. Total control. Total control is...
Good job. I got the other one too for you if you need it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
awesome. So total control is basically just showing a user where they're at in the whole process. And also guided experiences too. In the past, it's very common for the industry. We talked about paper before, where you would have a form that you fill out, and it's not. It's in words that make sense to us as a custodian, but not you as a user.
The jargon.
Bingo. Mm-hmm. Which that experience is rough. I mean, that's a really rough experience.
Like I hate the phrase bi-directional. I've made that clear on this podcast. Like it's just a stupid term.
Right. And it makes sense to us, doesn't make sense to a user. Go do a bi-direction letter. What the hell does that mean?
It's really just an order.
Yeah, exactly. So what we've done is we've streamlined the flow with questions, if-then logic, etc. We also use a parsing platform to pull details out from documents.
And that helps with the data integrity also.
Yeah, 100%.
So user, what he's referring to, sorry to cut you off, Trevor, is
Yeah,
that
no, you're good.
it used to be, prior to last Monday, you would have to sit there, look at a document, and type it in.
Yeah. Potentially scroll through pages and pages and pages to find relative information that we're asking to.
Which for a lot of our users is really just a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And is ripe with error and fat fingering, all those things. We created technology that now can take these, let's just use private equity, these investment documents, you scan them into our platform, we parse them out, we display the key data that's needed to do the transaction. You validate it. I mean, you could change it if you want, but you don't have to type anything anymore. Now, So now we're taking that snowflake of investment documents and standardizing it into our system without you having to do anything other than validating the data.
Right.
Two things. One, that makes it easier on our clients and the investors.
Yeah.
Two, that helps New Direction out as a business because then we have more accurate data and we can kind of see more of the trends. We understand where we should be putting marketing spend towards.
Absolutely.
It just helps us be more efficient as a company as well.
I mean, it is, I'm an old product guy. You always look for these killer features. That's one of the killer features that I think is going to revolutionize how, to Eric's point, we're going to be able to interact with our clients.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because historically, I mean, this platform only soft launched 2 weeks ago, listeners, so this is hot off the presses. Historically, a lot of the friction between us and our investors has been around data integrity. Is this correct? You put in 1,000 when it's supposed to be 10,000 kind of thing. You forgot to put the extra zero on it. I know that sounds silly, listener, but those just offs cause a lot of friction down the road, especially with funding, especially when we have to work with the Schwabs to get your Schwab account over to us, for example.
Right.
I think the next point is the one that I want to add a little more color on before I hand it over to you.
Yeah.
So one of the philosophies, I think it's just a general business philosophy for myself and the company, is that we're not a technology company. I know, listener, you're sitting here being like, what the heck? We're a technology-enabled company, not a technology company. We're not a fintech. We're not trying to be a fintech. At the center of the value that we want to bring to the marketplace is a human, actually. And all this technology that Trevor has created and his company built for us, and we helped market and promote and get out there. We haven't marketed and promoted yet other than this podcast, which is probably coming out next week. I mean, so it'll be 3 weeks at that time. I'm not good at the timeline, listener. Is at the root of all this, everything that we held to is we need to make sure this was a connectivity platform also. And that at the end of the day, yes, the technology's badass and it does all these cool features and we found the snowflakes and the cold wet and all that. But at the end of the day, there's someone named Zoe downstairs in our building. That's where our account managers are. There's an Eric in the world. There are humans that connect us. And it was important for Trevor and I, when we were looking at this, to make sure that we bridge that. So talk a little bit about the connectivity. That's the third C, listener, if you're following our Cs.
Yep.
Talk about the connectivity and how that was a priority in this platform to solve a lot of what, Eric is saying the investors had angst about.
Yeah. So let's just take a moment to go back to the beginning of the podcast. We talked about how we are in alternatives, and this industry is unique. We deal in unique. Because of that,
I love that. We deal in unique.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
good. Write that down.
I like that. That's good.
But because of that,
Trademarked.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, get a stamp on that bad boy.
Just kidding.
10% to me, right?
Of course, yes.
Cool.
10% of the zero value it has.
Well, when it becomes something.
So
yeah. Just like this podcast.
Yeah. But I want to call that out because that is really where the account management is crucial, right?
Yep.
Like there is struggle and there is confusion that come with these investments sometimes. There's nuance in every single deal.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these folks, like you said, a dentist from Nebraska, is coming to us who is making his first investment potentially ever, if not in a completely new asset category that we hold. And we identify that we standardize as much as we can, but there's going to be times where, people need help.
Yeah.
And
From a human.
Right. 100%. And there's nothing worse than, picking up the phone, waiting on a call, hitting, 1 for menu A, and then like that experience is terrible. And you end up in this endless loop. And, I personally really resonate with this a lot, and I ran with it. So what we did is we created a whole section called My Team. And My Team brings you to the
forefront. And this is on the new platform.
This is on the new platform, correct. And it brings the account manager directly to the forefront and center with all of your messages. It's, it's nothing groundbreaking, but it is a very intimate relationship. You get a picture of who you're talking to. You can set up meetings with this individual, so on and so forth. But we also went a little bit above and beyond that. And within each of the individual flows, there's still a point that you can start that communication process. There's a little button on there that you can open your account manager or your My Team and contact your account manager and ask them questions. And we built in some support features to allow our account managers to basically be able to guide you through and walk you through the process at your disposal. So if you're interested in connecting with your team, they can see what you're looking at if you prompt them to.
Yep.
It's all based from what the user wants to allow. And then they can walk through it and see what you're looking at and help you understand how to complete this process.
Let me double click on
intimacy.
That. Yeah, an intimacy. So what you're saying is that this dentist in Nebraska, this made up investor, and one of our account managers can have a bridge between them now, this platform.
Right.
And if he's logged in, he can share his screen, if you will.
Right.
I know there's a lot of, I can feel our engineers being like, it's more complicated than that. But he can share his screen with the account manager, and the account manager can then kind of guide him through those screens, just adding more context or just being there to answer something.
Correct.
That's so cool.
And I think a couple things that pop into my head thinking about this. One, it ties back to one of our core values of relationship-based.
No doubt.
So we're using this technology to help strengthen the relationship that we have with our clients. And 2, I think it also increases the amount of trust that investors and clients have with us throughout this whole process. Because again, as we've talked about before, it's can be very complicated, very confusing. And it's sometimes hard for people to trust that the process is going to work. And so it's just awesome to see that we're using this technology to help increase those very much so human interactions.
No doubt. And to Trevor's point too, and I think you said this earlier too, Eric, is that for almost every single one of our new clients, this is a new experience for them.
Right.
It is not rare, but 9 out of 10 of our new clients haven't bought a rental real estate property in their IRA before.
Yeah.
They haven't invested in a brewery before. So obviously we don't provide advice, but we do help guide you through using our technology. The technology gets you to the next step. A human's right next to you.
Yeah.
And that, I think that is, when Trevor and the team and everybody was designing this, I think that was a core tenet. We wanted to make sure that this was human-enabled technology.
Right.
We're not anti-AI, but we're anti-automation, full automation in a way.
Right.
We want a human still to be in there because this is so new.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah. And I think like I really want to leave it with the mental picture that I worked off of, right? Like, picture going in and you're trying to make this investment and you're running into challenges, filling out the paperwork that's required and making sure that everything with the investment is going smoothly. And picture, going into your local branch and being able to say, this is what I'm looking at. This is actually this is what I'm looking at. What do I do here?
Yeah.
Or, what is the status of this? And that person can act as if they're in the same room as you and say, it's up here. You just have to tap that button right there and you can see where you're at right now.
Yeah.
Or this field is asking for this type of information, and be able to provide a little bit of that context and that substance to help you get across the finish line.
I absolutely love that.
And I I think that mental model really sticks with me, particularly because this element is what is being lost in technology and now in today's day and age.
Totally agree.
And from the product side, I love that. I'm a huge believer in that, and knowing that was a core tenet of like really what we were trying to build here is super important to me. Which is actually why the whole idea is my team. We don't want people to feel like they're just shooting a message off. We want them to feel like they're in the room with their account manager and be able to work through these problems together.
Yeah, I mean,
to make your visions a reality.
It's funny because I think there's a lot of industries right now outside in financial services that are trying to really automate everything out, trying to get the human out of it. The AI boom and all this kind of stuff. Like, I mean, and I can speak for New Direction. I just got done with a meeting with our director of client experience, and like everything she's asking for, yes, is costly, but I'm like, yes, because we want to invest in those humans. We believe strongly that this is not this is a dance with the investor, and we have to dance with them from a human standpoint. And the technology really is just the song we're dancing to. It's the step we're doing. And so we're on the same page with each other, which I just find. I mean, I just want to say your team has done an excellent job on this platform. Full disclosure, this is now my 92nd platform product I've rolled out from a digital standpoint. This was the hardest one because I wasn't really intimately involved in it. I mean, I'm old now, so I have to let the Trevors of the world do this.
Sure.
You have to so fast on the true, Jesus. Is that I get no respect around here, listener? Is that this has been one of the most enjoyable rollouts because I got to watch Trevor's team and the Bear Teak team and our business systems team and just everybody come together and build, like really make something new.
Yeah,
that's kind of cool.
It's awesome.
It's very awesome. So we're going to close this out here, guys, and I'm going to close out this way. I'll end it with kind of like what as the request of the listener. But Eric, just in general, you play a very strong role in this podcast of kind of representing the investor. What is your takeaway from all of this effort that we've put into this new technology, the standards, and how do you think? What are the kind of the key messages you want the investor to hear because you spend so much time with them about this new technology platform?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I would say first, bad technology or antiquated technology typically creates confusion and friction.
Agreed.
Second, good technology hopefully addresses most of that friction and those pain points. So, I think the main thing that we want investors to take away from this is that it should be painless. It should be an enjoyable experience. And I think the last point is that it is meant to increase the visibility and take out the guesswork for the investor so that they can kind of come in and not that they can turn their brain off in the process, but we are trying to implement the technology to make it enjoyable so that more people can get into it and realize that there are more options to diversify your retirement accounts and not be solely siloed into Wall Street. You can
totally agree.
Have that diversity and invest in what you know. We always say that, invest in what you know, invest local. And so, again, our mission is to make it so that you can do that more easily. Yeah.
Were we going to get t-shirts to say? Remember one podcast we talked about the invest local t-shirts?
We're in the process of working on that.
I'm not sure it's in the budget. Eric, well said. I think that is a key point. The platform has been investor driven and trying to make it less friction in a world where everything's a snowflake. Trevor, I'm gonna have you close out a little differently. More personal in a way. What are you the most proud of with this project?
Wow.
Off script. Told you it was gonna happen.
I mean, as a whole, I think the whole thing is incredibly gratifying to be able to work on. I think this is a pivotal point for this industry, and I think that just the fact of that is the thing that brings me the most pride. Because it's funny. We've talked about what we've built, but really also what we have built is we have built the base of what to move from.
Here.
And kind of with all of that, with the data, with the function of the product itself, we have built a base to be able to run with, to create that playbook, so to speak, to bring standard in some capacity to an industry that might not have it. And I think being at the forefront of that is probably the thing I'm the most proud of.
Well said, man. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I think, it is, we have laid a foundation. We created a foundation when there was no foundation to be found, which I'm extraordinarily proud of the team and all the effort into that. But the platform that we rolled out 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, or 10 weeks ago, depending on when you're listening to this, or a year ago, it is just
in May. Early May.
Yeah, May 2026. If that's a better way to say it, actually, is really just the beginning. It's chapter 1.
Yeah.
Because we can't do all the cool stuff that we've thought about and designed out until we laid this foundation.
That is absolutely right.
And that's what wakes me up every single day, is that we at New Direction are trying things new. New direction, ha ha ha.
Right.
Everyone says it. And this is where my request comes in, listener, is that we don't have all the answers. In some of these aspects, we're making a hypothesis and being vulnerable and putting it out there for you to use it.
Right.
We want your feedback. When I talked about alternative investments, a dance. There's the trust custodian, and then there's the investor, and they have to do it together. We're asking you, end user, to give us feedback because, as you guys can tell, Trevor is a very intelligent person. But as he said earlier, he doesn't have all the answers. And so we have this roadmap. We have all this cool stuff we're going to do.
Yep.
But I ask you, investor, dance with us. Log in. Check it out. Click around. Find things. Be curious with the new platform. I know we have other cool stuff coming out over the summer in kind of waves.
Yep.
But again, at that moment, I ask that you kind of join us in this laying a foundation and growing this industry, because none of us will be wasting our time. We have other opportunities if we wanted them, and we all are committed to this, and I am stoked for that. So again, listener, this was a little different than a normal podcast, but I had a thought too. Maybe we should do. I was going to take us on a tangent about AI. Maybe we do another technology one in a month or so.
Yeah.
Maybe we do a technology-focused one like every other month or something.
Yeah, I like that.
And the next one's about AI, because I think that is a hot topic.
Yep.
And I have strong opinions about it.
Yep.
And where it fits in this industry. I also have strong opinions that AI on its own can't live without context and data. And so if an industry doesn't have good context and data, context being knowledge, things like that, AI is just a tool.
Right.
And so I think the foundation we've laid is allowing that context and data, but we're still not there. So I wouldn't mind bringing Trevor back in, and maybe even John too. So John runs Bear Peak, and I think I'd find it entertaining to have a pretty intellectual conversation about AI and financial services.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So Trevor, I'm publicly going to say it. You're one of my favorite guys I work with. Way better than Eric. Just kidding, listener. Everybody loves Eric. And the team has just knocked it out of the park. It has been 3 years-ish.
Yeah, 2.5.
Yeah, of just nonstop banging our heads against the wall, trying to figure stuff out, innovating, creating, letting some stuff to move forward, changing processes.
Right.
So I just want to say, listener, I encourage you to check out the platform.
Yeah.
It is a foundational platform for cool stuff we're going to move forward. I also encourage you listeners, if you're a client of New Direction, or even for my other custodian friends, make sure you submit your fair market value. That's key to all this. The fair market value is the thing.
Is that what you sign off with on the end?
I should.
You should.
We should make a T-shirt about fair market values. Yeah. There's got to be something clever about fair market values.
Submit your fair market values.
Yes.
Thank you for having us.
Trevor, you are a rock star.
Trevor.
Listener, we still have some more stuff coming about. We have Eric's working on bringing in some other guests in the coming podcasts. This one's a little off the normal. We have some other partners. Bear Peak's been a partner. Sogo's been a partner of ours. Again, Eric and ours vision to this is really to bring you guys into the conversations we're having. Even to his point earlier, talking about just transparency. This is a very transparent conversation about how the industry kind of sucks at data, and we're trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
So thank you, Trevor.
Absolutely.
You're the man.
Yeah.
You guys want to go get a beer?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, guys.
All right, I'm
Listener, see ya. Thank you for listening. Take care.
See ya.